Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Netflix's latest mystery film from the Knives Out film franchise. This is the third installment. Wake Up Dead Man. Returning is writer and director Rian Johnson, also the star Daniel Craig as the master detective Benoit Blanc, once again flanked by an all-star powerful cast. You have Josh O'Connell, Glenn Close, Josh Brolin, Mila Kunis is in this film. Hawkeye himself, Jeremy Renner, Kerry Washington, Andrew Scott, Cailee Spaeny, Daryl McCormack, and Hayden or Thomas Haden Church. And of course, you can't have a film based around a church without having Thomas Haden Church. It's only fitting. And in this installment of the franchise, you have Benoit Blanc returning for his most dangerous case yet. That's what the tagline did. But it's not really his most dangerous in my eyes. But this is a case that involves priests, faith, and the most impossible crime. I'm a big fan of this franchise. It's crazy. I was thinking while watching this film, I remember going to the theater to watch Knives Out. I had an advanced screening to that movie, and I was just all in on it. I love a good whodunit. I'm a big whodunit guy, and oddly enough, what got me hooked on whodunits is Clue. The movie Clue from the 1980s with Tim Curry and a cast of others. But I love Clue. And yes, it's problematic now. If you go back and watch it, it's kind of all over the place, but I still love it. Love that movie. Got me hooked on whodunits, and especially comedies, dark comedies with whodunits and mystery and thriller elements and all that wrapped up in one. And Knives Out was a throwback to that in a sense. Very smart, real, smartly written by Rian Johnson. I was intrigued by it. So when they announced that Netflix had struck a deal with Rian Johnson to give us a lengthy of films, a film series based on this master detective, I was all in, man. Glass Onion, I had so much fun with it. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was a fun movie. It's the one film in this series, which is crazy. It's only 3 as it stands right now, that I wouldn't go back and watch again, unless it's on in the background or something like that. But nothing I would seek out to go see. But this film, I guess I spoiled it when I said that, but this film definitely fits in that realm of the first film. I love this. It can compete for being better than the first film. The mystery was there. Now I will say this: the one thing about this movie that is different from the others in a sense, I knew who the killer was. I knew who the killer was very, very early, as opposed to the other films where I really didn't know. It took me a minute to find out. In this one, I figured it out pretty early. Now, with that being said, I think it was designed that way because as the film goes on, it throws you off of that scent. Like, well, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't them. Maybe it was them. I don't know. But then you go back like, no, it makes sense. It would be them. But I'm like, well, is it though? It does a good job of kind of throwing off the scent. And I had fun going down this rabbit hole with Benoit Blanc and our young priest played by Josh McConnell. Man, that was an awesome cast. I mean, Daniel Craig, what else needs to be said? He owns this role. I think he was born to play this more than he was born to play James Bond. He really embraced this role from the first one. This could have easily been a paycheck type role for him, going back to Knives Out and whatnot. But he looks like he is enjoying getting into this role. He enjoys playing this character and, bouncing off of these other talented actors that he gets to play in this sandbox with. And this film is no different. I think he had the most to do in this film than he has in any other installment. I had fun with Daniel Craig in his role. Oddly enough, he really didn't pop up until about an hour into the movie. It took a minute for us to get to him, but once we got to him, it was all him, man. He was chewing up the scenery like nobody's business, but allowing everybody else to have fun. And that's another enjoyable thing about this. As stacked as this cast is, nobody outdid the other. Nobody overacted. Nobody tried to outshine anybody in this film. The true star of this movie is Josh O'Connell. He is the protagonist in this film. He's the character that we're following throughout. So it was a lot on his shoulders. I don't know much about him. I was about to say I'm not a fan. It wouldn't be fair to say that. I haven't seen him in anything other than this. I probably have and didn't realize it, but this is my first time really seeing him in something as far as the lead. And man, I'm like, where has he been all my life? He is really, really good. And because if he doesn't work, if his character doesn't work, if his performance is flat, the movie is flat, because you are him. You are seeing the movie or seeing the film through his eyes, So it gotta work. And he did a great job. Because he truly has to interact with every single person in this film outside of Daniel Craig. Even before Daniel Craig's character shows up, we got a full story, a backstory, a motivation, where he's coming from, what he's struggling with. All that was flushed out perfectly before the movie even jumped into high gear. And so automatically you're like, okay, I can watch a movie about this guy. Now the murder part of it all, that's just the lanyard. That's just a little extra there. But yeah, I was super impressed by him. If I had to pick one of the supporting cast that were, standing out more than the other, I would say Glenn Close, but it would be, no pun intended, a close race with her and Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin, man. I mean, once again, could have been a throwaway role, could have been a paycheck role. I'm just doing this to do it. No, man, he really dove into this role in this performance, man. Awesome job by everybody. Nobody was miscast. The entire cast was perfect, as always in these films. Moving on to the direction, Rian Johnson. Last Jedi aside, every film that he has made, I loved. I love the way he tells a story. I love the way not only his writing and how he flush out characters, but his eye and how he shows, especially in these type of movies, show us little Easter eggs or little things, prior to the reveal. If you go back and think, you're like, oh, that's why that character did this little facial expression, or have their hand in a coat for an entire scene, and then when we get a reveal, we see why their hand is in that coat or why they're standing in this section of the room. Everything is like perfectly orchestrated and it just executed to borderline perfection. I am super impressed in his direction. The tone was perfect. Everything was great. But I do have one flaw. I do have one tiny flaw with the film. This movie is 2 hours and 24 minutes long. it did not have to be 2 hours and 24 minutes. It could have easily been a tight 2 hours, and we would have got the same joy walking away from it. It just ran a little too long. And a lot of films are doing that these days, especially on streaming, because there's no real regulation, because when you release a film in theaters, you want to get it under 2 hours because you can get more viewings in a day, but if you have a 3 hour or 2.5 3 hour movie, that cuts down the number of viewings, which means it cuts down the amount of money it makes. So that's why it's such a tight window with theatrical. And now releasing it at home, who cares? You can watch it as many times, how many times, or whatever. And so it's kind of free going on streaming services, but that doesn't mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should all the time. Now, some movies do require. This is one I don't think required 2 hours and 30 minutes. It could have easily trimmed off 20 minutes of this film, and it wouldn't have hurt not one element of this story. Now, aside from that, this movie is great. I really enjoyed it. Of course, this is my bag. I love these type of films, and so it may be an element of bias there, but I still love it regardless. And another element I did enjoy about this is the discussion, the underlining, not really underlining, because it really was the plot, the the storyline with faith and with religion and with belief and versus non-belief. And movies like that kind of get me nervous because I am a Christian, I'm a believer, and so I get kind of uncomfortable with that sometimes, because some filmmakers or whoever may come with their own agenda, trying to push their own agenda, and I don't go to movies for that. Everybody has the right to have their opinion, but that's not my thing. To push your own thing, and that goes either way. I'm not saying for the believers and non-believers, they all. I don't need to see that. I don't watch Christian movies for that reason, and I'm a Christian, so that should go tell you that I'm being pretty non-biased there. But this film doesn't do that, and it had a clear opportunity to do, but it really left it up to the viewer. It really just laid it out there, like, hey, whatever your belief is, that's your belief, but we can still coexist. And I did like that element of it, and I love that no matter where you stand on that spectrum, that I think you could take away something from this movie. Not to say that it changed your life, but whatever you believe going in, you're probably going to believe walking out. It won't offend you, and I really do appreciate the movie for that. With all that being said, Wake Up Dead Man gets a letter grade of an A-. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. One of the best films of the year. I wasn't shocked by this at all. My mouth didn't hit the floor like, oh my God, what did I watch? No, it didn't do that, because I fully expected from this team. But I would like to know, what did you think of Wake Up Dead Man? Does it fit perfectly amongst the pantheon of the Knives Out films, or did you not enjoy it? Do you think it's at the bottom of the list out of these three films? I would love to know your opinion, your thoughts, and your feelings. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel here on YouTube, and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.